Hi, I'm Zendor, and yes, you have been expecting me. I'll be your guide, playing the devil's advocate as we peer into the depths of what keeps us afraid, angry, ignorant, and immobile. You draw your own conclusions. So many times, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And in today's world with so much misinformation keeping us apart, it really does matter how we interact with one another.
Namaste and in-law catch, and welcome to this episode of One World in a New World. I'm your host, Zen Benefiel, and I would love to ask you, please subscribe, share, comment. It makes the world go round better for all of us, and I'm certain it will for you. I would also like to invite you to stop by planetarycitizens.net. There, you can get your free copy of Planetary Citizens Awakening the Heart of Humanity. And it will definitely give you a different perspective on the world and your place in it, a more cohesive one for sure. So I know you'll love that. Thank you. So this week's guest is Norman Wolfe. He is the CEO and founder of Quantum Leaders. He's the author of The Living Organization and the creator of the Living Organization Framework. He's on the advisory board for the Confluence Capital Group. He's a past member of Conscious Capitalism and helped formulate their initial offerings or philosophy for the organization. And he's a graduate of New York University. Now, Norman and I have also had an interesting relationship pre-show in a project I'm working on for an AI universal engine that he's been really helpful with. And so one of the things that I find, and hopefully you do too, is when you ask for help, you reach out, it's there. People, collaborators, those with heart and mind connected are there to help and do it willingly and almost effortlessly in many cases. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for some help sometime. So with that being said, I will see you in just a moment. Don't go away. We'll be right back with another wonderful apocalyptic chat.
This is the AI Universal Engine. It functions as a surgical theater for enterprise complexity, a system built to synchronize human intuition with machine precision. Before touching a market strategy, the system deploys its cognitive behavioral synapse, or CBS engine, to diagnose the internal health of the organization. Instead of treating office politics and anxiety as soft, unmanageable variables, the CBS engine digitizes them. It maps organizational fear, uncertainty, and resistance, and calculates an exact numerical coherence score. With these metrics, leadership can locate the specific departments suffering from cognitive blockages. They can address the root fears of their teams and align company culture long before a new initiative is launched. By mathematically diagnosing friction, an organization cures its resistance rather than constantly fighting against its own employees.
Norman, it's so great to have you here. I've been looking forward to this. We've had some initial interactions that were just spectacular, and I appreciate them. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you, Zen. It's a pleasure to be here. I love the work you're doing, and hopefully I can contribute something to your audience.
I'm sure you will. You've got a lot of insight and wisdom to share, I'm sure. Now, we talked about this before, but our conversations are based about or on this bereftness we have of talking about what's going on inside of us. And that happens in oh so many different ways, whether it's an inner journey, a conflict, a confusion, or an experience that you've had that's just out of this world, speaking of, right? Speaking from the moon, that you don't quite understand. You're kind of afraid to talk about with others because it might make you seem kind of weird. Well, I'll guarantee you, you're not the only one. And we've got 200 and some odd conversations already that validate that point that you can peruse and take a look at. Now, Norman, I know that with your work, this has had to have been a lifetime that you've contemplated and percolated the ideas that you've been given. When did you first notice that there was something beyond the norm that you had that connected you deeper than what you were noticing around you?
Gosh, that's really, going back over 70 plus years of my life. There's been so
Bring
many,
that kid back, right?
there's been so many moments in my life as I look back on it where you might say the little voice inside was whispering.
Yeah,
Um,
that's perfect because it is a voice. You hear it.
oh yeah, yeah.
When
Well,
when
we talk about it as a voice, and it's not often a for me, it's not often a voice where somebody's going, um, hey Norman, guess what?
well,
It,
it's
it
usually yourself talking to yourself from a higher place, right?
well, it's more sometimes just a feeling tone,
Hmm.
not necessarily a verbalization, but more of a feeling tone or a sense of it that I might put the words on afterwards.
Sure. Well,
But
and that makes sense that quantum physics today proves that we're all energy. You know, the ancient philosophy, the three brain indigenous philosophy, your gut, heart, and head, we process from the head down. The natural way is from the gut up, which starts with that feeling, that sense that you just mentioned.
so back to your question, I'm not quite sure. I guess the most significant event happened in my early 20s
Hmm.
when I had what you might call a major epiphany where the um, came out of a period of, I wouldn't want to say conflict, but questioning.
Hmm.
And I was awoken to this experience of, I often hate putting words on it, God, divine love,
Why
universal.
do we do that? Right. And here's where we have challenges, right? Expressing that so that it makes
Yeah, I mean,
sense because it's so ineffable.
it's ineffable. And yet it's very much there. So
Mhm.
it was an experience that vibrated through me to talk about energy
Hmm.
for probably about 2, 3 months. And then slowly it dissipated and the ego self took over again. And I went into, started work. I just graduated from university and went back to work and started my first job. So, but the experience never left me. And it probably became a root of a lot of my current thinking in life about what I often call the universal energy of life,
Hmm.
or the natural frequency of the universe, if you think of it in those terms. Because,
Sure.
everything has a natural frequency that it vibrates
But
at.
yeah, there's a natural order that we've yet to fully embrace yet. We understand it's there. It's in all the documentation, all the ancient spiritual texts, and even modern physics texts, where they say, yeah, this there, but what's the experience of it? Now,
Well, the experience for me is one of love,
yeah.
unconditional and unconditioned love. That's why I call it the natural frequency. David Hawkins wrote this book, Power versus Force, and
Mhm.
he talked about how emotions are really frequencies the body experiences.
Yeah.
I think the natural frequency of life um, is that frequency of love. I think in David's book he calls it bliss. I
Right.
think the Hindus call it Satchitananda, which is awareness and bliss and consciousness.
Satori
So
is another
that
name.
that's the
It's a transcendence.
yeah. I mean, you can call it what you want, but it was a
Yeah.
very real experience. Like I said, that has infused a lot of my work today.
It's interesting how many words from all different kinds of cultures and texts and all kinds of different things saying the same thing, right? But we often get confused with the different words because we have a different perspective on the different words, even though they're all saying the same thing.
Well, if you think about it, words are just an attempt, a rather poor attempt for the most part,
True.
to share an experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the experience that you had in between, so you had a moment of, let's just say, bliss, where you got connected and you recognized that, but then you went from what I call we go back into the ego. How did you notice that transition, and what were the things that distracted you back into the ego? I think those are important things for people to consider.
Um, you know, it happens all the time. We just get caught up in daily living.
Hmm.
You know, having a conversation about the project or paying my bills or um, just trying to navigate life. And we don't really know how to navigate life from a place of
Do we though? That's always the question, because in that place, you know exactly what to do. When you're tuned in and you're present, right? You're not thinking about the past or the future. That doesn't mean there's no bearing that it has, because you're harvesting the past to nurture the future in that present moment, right? What are the things that you found were able to bring you into that place so that you could recognize the distractions and set them aside?
well, what I've learned is to notice periods of discomfort or upset.
Hmm.
Those are that's my body telling me something is off. Now, when I say something is off, it just means there's something that's disturbing me that I have to deal with. Usually it has a lot to do with how I've framed my life.
Right.
So the universe is inviting me to explore my own belief systems, let's just say, or what I call my context, right? My
Sure.
my well-constructed narrative about how life should work.
Right. Tain't
And
necessarily so, right?
the universe is saying, well, you might want to reconsider that. Now, that's the
Exactly.
polite way. The experience is one of anxiety, discomfort, upset, frustration, anger, um, things that typically trigger a response because the world is not fitting into my well-crafted narrative of how it should work.
Mhm. Now,
And
so there's two views on that, right? Are you angry and maybe a little bitter of how the outside is working, or are you angry at yourself because of your inability to connect?
could be all of the above.
Yeah. That's a paradox of it, the inner and the outer. And it's strange,
It's
and yet the friction that you're talking about is what causes us to grow. It invites us to.
Yeah, I was going to just say it doesn't cause us to grow because many people don't. I didn't for a long time. We most people try to organize the outside world to fit their inside story.
Hmm.
And one of the greatest gifts that was given to me over the course of my life was meeting my current wife, who at the time we met was a very active in the improvisation world, not comedy improv, but the more like the theater improv world. And
Hmm.
um,
That's a fascinating place to engage,
well,
or just
yeah,
even witness.
I gave a talk at a applied improvisation network quite a number of years ago now, and it was improvisation is a spiritual journey.
Mm,
Improvisation requires us to face life, doesn't requires us, it invites us to face life from the point of view of accepting what is. That's the first principle of improv, is to say yes to whatever shows up.
yeah, that's very Zen, right?
Well, it's very
It's just
everything.
what is. There's no judgment, no right or wrong. It's just what is.
Yeah, you can call it Zen, you can call it Kabbalistic, you can call it Brahmin, you can call it anything. It's just
Exactly.
it's the root of every spiritual tradition is life is just life.
Right.
And it's humans who want to create a different narrative about it. And we try to force life to fit our narrative instead of learning how to fit our narrative into life. It's a completely different approach. So um yeah, and the first step in anything is when that sense of discomfort happens. I can either continue to navigate, how do I change the world to fit me?
Hmm.
Or I can look at what in me is causing me this discomfort and what can I learn and grow from it. But it's an invitation. Life is always inviting us. They say that the soul is always tapping on our shoulder, but we have free will, as they love to say, and we
Sure.
get to decide what we want to do with our lives.
The choice, right? We always have the choice. Now, do we want to operate as a volunteer? Say, oh yeah, that looks cool. Let's try it, right? And do the improvisational thing, right? You step into it. It's an unknown, and yet there's a certain level of trust that develops in the repetition of those steps, right? You learn to kind of let yourself just do it because it's going to be pretty cool when you do.
Well, not always.
Well,
Just recently, I'll just give
yeah,
you
the excruciatingly fun part of it, right?
I'll give you a specific example
Sure.
that I've just gone through. I've been on this path. I've authored my book, The Living Organization. I just published the second one, and it'll be released September 1st, called Leading the Living Organization.
Hmm.
And over the last 2 years, have a number of clients, and I've also trained 15 other consultants now. So I've been on this path for, quite a long time. Something felt off about it. I started to get frustrated with my clients. I started to get upset with some of my consultants. And it was like,
It's like, what's missing, right?
what I discovered was it had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with me.
Mm,
And I was being invited to go down a different path that would produce better results. But it required a major change in me. I had to step into being a different kind of person, speak differently, act differently, make requests differently. Um, and this whole path was very unknown. So
sure. Refinement
metaphorically,
usually is, right?
metaphorically speaking, I was on this path, and all of a sudden, call it the inner voice is tapping me, and they say, Norman, take the one to the right. Take the one to the right. And I'm looking down this path on the right, and it is not very pretty. There's a couple of boa constrictors hanging around and some um, traps and overgrown vegetation. And yeah, laying down in front of me is a machete, but I've never used a machete before, so I don't know if I'm going to cut my foot off or not. I mean, this is
Sure, sure.
I'm
Yeah,
talking metaphorically,
I get it.
but the physical experience of looking down that path um, was equally as frightening. So, what do I do? Do I stay on the path that's comfortable and that I know and struggle with the things that are not working and try to make them work?
Hmm.
Or do I take a deep breath and accept the invitation the universe is putting me through and challenge myself to have the conversations I didn't want to have and to have them in a different way than I've ever had them before? And after a while, I learned that, I can use this machete, I can cut a path, and gee, that boa constrictor wasn't really gonna kill me, and that lion over there kind of was a pussycat. I mean, you don't know that going in, but
That's for sure.
as I've traveled this path, and it's very fresh because I'm still in the early days of going down this path.
Hmm.
It gets a little bit easier, and then there's a conversation, a very difficult one. And I use my skills that I know about, mostly what I call heart centering and heart-centered communication.
Right.
And I come out the other end with, oh, I got the result I wanted. And everybody walked away perfectly, perfectly whole, if I will. They got what
So you
they
had to
wanted.
address
I
the
got what,
elephant in the room.
and so this notion of um, thinking that I've yet to experience an invitation from God, the universe, my soul, whatever you want to call it. I've yet to experience an invitation that was easy, pleasant. It just never has been for me. Now, the outcome as I've gone through those challenges has been delightful,
Right.
wonderful, ecstatic. But going through them is not easy.
Oh no, I
And
can
I don't
agree.
want to minimize that. I don't even want to promise people that there's going to be a positive outcome at the end. I have no idea. I'm not ever capable of predicting that.
Sure. Well, that's why I came up with the phrase excruciatingly fun, because it's excruciating when you go through it, but once you've been through it enough times, you come out the other side, you know it's going to be fun because it's changing things. It's making life better, more enjoyable, sometimes even more abundant, right? And that's on all kinds of levels, not just financial, that's relationship wise too.
I'm always hesitant. I'm not one to get big into, the beauty of life. I've had enough challenges in my life to have realization that um, life, if you have the right framework, life can be quite beautiful and blissful and peaceful. But getting there is not necessarily always so. And I don't make promises to people that, hey, you follow this path and have these beliefs and life's going to be perfect, because I have no way of knowing if it will.
I
So
think for anybody to say that is not speaking the truth, right? Because every person's got their different path. It could be challenging. There are those who love to step in the middle of chaos, which is excruciating for most people, but they feel comfortable in it, right? Because they know they can move through it, identify the patterns in it, and harmonize those things that are available to do so, recognize those that aren't, and continue in a way that they're questioning, okay, what else can I do in order to bring this into order? That doesn't eliminate the friction. What it does is allows us to use the friction to create the challenge for us, and recognizing that we can meet that challenge because we've done it time and time again, right?
well,
And
the challenge in getting comfortable with doing it time and time again is you get locked into the next challenge and it becomes more difficult because you stay with what's comfortable. The real challenge in life is never to get comfortable with being comfortable. Yeah, I remember going to a trip, my wife and I took a trip to Europe probably just before COVID hit. So it was probably around 2018 now. It's a lot
Mhm.
longer than I thought. But it was quite a number of years between that trip and the previous trip out of the country. And I remember how uncomfortable I was feeling with going into countries that I didn't know anything about and unknown territory. And I remember saying, if I really want to enjoy this trip, I have to get comfortable with being completely uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I think if I was to give anybody advice in terms of navigating life is get comfortable with what you're uncomfortable with.
So that's rather paradoxical, huh? But and nevertheless true.
And if you cut too comfortable in life, start looking for something that makes you uncomfortable because that's where your growth
Yeah.
opportunities are.
Something you've wanted to do but never had the guts to do it.
Well,
Something
it
like that.
doesn't have to be guts. It just means,
Uh,
may not even be
Metaphorically,
something that,
right? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just a simple act of
Courage.
when you're, yeah, I hesitate throwing around labels like that because uh, I don't know, it just feels like uh, marketing hype.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And yet there's that fortitude within one that is
Yeah, I mean,
necessary to move into those places. And
yes, there is courage. I mean, it is courageous to be uncomfortable, to be comfortable with
yeah,
uncomfortable. It is courageous to go down a path but again, we tend to throw around labels like that as if they're marketing hype, and it's,
sure. Well, now let me ask you this. So since you said that, is it possible that that our belief system, right, thinks that it's a courageous act when actually it's a natural one?
is it possible? I don't know what's possible. Sure, I assume it's possible.
I don't know. The
again,
question just
we
came up.
use,
If we look at it differently, what might that offer?
well, once, again, I can only speak from my personal
Sure.
experiences. For me, having gone through a number of we call it personal change processes, right? Personal invitations to do something different and new, and um, it gets easier because I've gone through it so many times that it's now, oh, I see what's going on. I'm being invited to go down this path. Oh,
Hmm.
I'm uncomfortable. Oh, it's scary. Okay. Okay, here we go. One more time. And I got through it before. I think I'll get it through it this time. But you got to have, I think if there's one thing I would probably offer people to cultivate more than anything else is self-compassion.
Yes.
Because courage is one thing, but that's kind of like forcefulness.
At
Compassion,
least assertiveness.
uh, compassion at least gives us that sense of, you know what, no matter how scared I am, no matter how weak I am, no matter how afraid I am, I can still have compassion for myself.
Hmm.
I can still be okay with who I am. I can be okay in the fearfulness. I can be okay and then from that place, typically, at least again for me, I find the strength of conviction or the choicefulness to move forward in the face of fear. Um, so I think the root skill that I would encourage people to adapt is compassion. Um, it's self-love, it's self-acceptance, whatever terms you want to use, but it's that place where we can be okay with not being okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a place of solace too, where you can just be okay, right? Look at life from a place of just watching it rather than being pulled into it first. And then as notice the invitations, there's always breadcrumbs.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
So there are always things that place themselves in front. Once you have the intent to go through this process, there are always, um, I call them breadcrumbs, but there are things that show up that help guide you to let you know you're going the right direction. Subtly, right? Because this is all the subtle invitation, the still small voice, the gut impressions, all of that. It's all subtle. It's rarely something that beats you over the head.
I guess one of the reasons and you've noticed I've used phrases, I usually use multiple phrases like, God or divine or,
Hmm.
tree of life or this one or that thing. Um, the problem I have with language is language keeps us away from the experience of life. And life has to be lived at the experience level. It's interesting I won't go into the reasons for it, but recently, about a month and a half ago, I was invited to, and I accepted the challenge to uh, read. I don't have time to read, so I listen when I'm on the treadmill exercising. I listen to the New Testament.
Okay.
And one of the things that became very interesting to me as I listened to the way they talk at that time, there was a period back then when people had access to the experience of life. They didn't lose that ability to feel the energy of life. In the Bible or in the New Testament, they talk about it as um, experiencing the whole. How do they say it? God, I can't believe I can't remember. Um, Being filled with the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
or speaking with authority.
Right.
That's not authority as in I was given permission by somebody to speak. It's speaking from a place within them where there's a knowingness and a connectedness to something bigger than everybody, right? Feeling the energy of life, not the words of life. Um, and we've lost that a lot through the um, industrial revolution and
Sure.
the
And
scientific
even the techno,
revolution.
we've lost the ability to talk to each other. It's now emails, text, short video message.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the processing life through the head instead of through the experience.
Yeah,
Language. We never stop talking. We never listen. We never experience. We don't even allow ourselves moments to stop and say, what am I experiencing in this moment? We've always got to be saying something or thinking something. And
right.
um,
Well, perfect example, you pause occasionally to collect yourself and to be able to give you that time without wanting to fill it because there's dead air, right? The choice is to just be patient. Allow that energy to move. Sometimes I can do that. Sometimes I get triggered by things and interrupt the process. Now, neither is right or wrong. It's just what happens. But to give it that opportunity for, like with you, to give the opportunity to finish what you're thinking in order to offer some details.
well, yeah, I mean, I appreciate from a conversation point of view, you're 100% right. I do tend to, and this is part of my new path that I've been mentioning. Allow myself to tune into the moment before I take the moment and quickly juggle it around and put it into my nice little box,
Right, right.
right? And to use the words that I always use and blah 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 blah. Yeah, I've done that so much in my life, and that's part of what I discovered is getting in my way. So now I'm very more tuned into what am I experiencing this moment, and what am I drawn to say, rather than trying to say something for the sake of saying it or anything like that. It's a
Well,
very different way.
oftentimes, do you find that in that, pardon the interruption, in that um, desire to connect and connecting with others, that you're triggered sometimes with things, not necessarily triggered, but you're prompted to um, move your energy into different places into your body. And as we learn this process, we get to a place where like, oh, I recognize that pattern, and we speak to it right away, rather than letting it play out a little bit to see if there's something more.
I would say yes. That again, that's my old style. Is
Hmm.
I hear something and I want to. Oh, I know what that means, and I want to jump in. Um, but yes, giving it space, letting it let it
Be still and know that I am, right?
let it percolate. Let it have a chance to be present in the
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, you'll say something right here in this conversation, and I'll go, oh yeah, blah 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 blah. And I take a breath and I just say, okay, I'm just going to continue to listen
Hmm.
until there's an appropriate pause, and then I'll see what I feel like saying. Um, and yeah, it's just a skill set. There's actually a wonderful program out there called Action Theater, I think it is. It's a form of improvisation,
Hmm.
but the whole process is somebody does something, but you have to let that complete, and then and then you let it move something inside of you, and then you add on to what they did, and then they let that complete, and then they give space for that to move them.
Sounds like improv.
It's a form of improvisation. It's called action
Absolutely.
theater, and it's not a verbal improvisation. It's somatic. It's bodyful.
Right, right.
It's a very different way of being. It was created by a dancer. I can't remember her name. Viola Spolin, I think. Anyway, it's a wonderful experience to learn how to be present to what is moving, whether it's words or action,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then allowing that to move within you, and then respond from that.
Right.
Um,
It's, I have similar experience a lot of different ways, but one in particular that you remind me of is I'm a progressive drummer. And my favorite way to play is improv. And I played with some guys for, almost 20 years. And we had this just wonderful sense of each other. And so we would decide, we never really had no lyrics, it was all just music. We would pick a place to play about or an emotion to play about, and then just take a journey. And the conversations, which are what the music is, right? You've got four or five musicians that are just having a conversation in different ways simultaneously. And you feel where things are going because you have the skill set and the agility to let yourself go. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls it flow, right? He talks about it in the psychology of optimal experience. It's like a jazz quartet jamming, right? Everything just goes. Time, ego, and it's just your presence that's there with your instrument, and you and your instrument become one, not just with the instrument, but with the group. Now,
yeah.
how do we, and I know you understand that, how do we bring that kind of experience into the workplace?
Well, that's a lot about what my work is about.
I know
Uh,
that. That's why I asked. Door opens.
the challenge in the workplace is um, it's a specifically designed environment with a certain set of rules. It's like a game, right? And you think of any game, all games are, you play whatever they are, they have certain rules for engagement, right? If you're going to play baseball, you got 9 players on the field, and very different than if you're playing football and you don't play baseball on the football field, and et
Right.
cetera, et cetera. And if you're
Well, you
playing
do in some stadiums.
well, yeah, but they're reconfigured, and if you're playing football, it's similar to soccer, but not really, and
Right.
well,
Right. And then you
life
got frisbee. You've got what do they call it?
frisbee golf.
Ultimate frisbee. No, not
Yeah,
frisbee golf. Ultimate frisbee. It's a combination of basketball, soccer, and football.
well, there you go. But it's got its own rules. So every
Yeah.
every every arena in life is like a game, and it's got its own rules. Business is the same way. And there's a certain set of rules, or what I call the paradigm of business, the pattern of how it operates, that
Hmm.
that we've been all conditioned to follow. And that paradigm is it's easy to understand because it's a very simple one. An organization, a business is like a black box that takes inputs and produces outputs.
Hmm.
And the purpose of leadership is to figure out how to design that black box so that the inputs is converted to outputs as efficiently as possible.
Right.
And then to redesign it whenever there's something off and so forth.
Hmm.
And so the leader's role is, to instruct the black box how to operate, and a lot of what's in the black box are various components, and one of those components are people, but they're just components, right? And that's the existing model.
If I may offer, they're not just components. The humans are the essential resource that makes it all happen because it ain't
Just
happening without them.
you just began to leap into the other paradigm.
There I go again. Right.
In the existing paradigm, I'm not saying what we like as people who look
Right.
at this game. It's like I'm looking at basketball and I go, or baseball, and I go, God, it's so slow. Why can't they move faster? And I recreate a new game. You know, let's just look at the
I
game.
lied. Right.
The game as it is, as it's designed, the game we call business, the paradigm of it, the rules of it is it's just a component. And so, for instance, my goal is to make it efficient, and we'll just talk about the most current technology. Artificial intelligence, what's everybody saying? Artificial intelligence is a new component that's going to replace our old components because artificial intelligence is faster, smarter, and it doesn't cause me any problems. I tell it what to do and it does it, right?
Right. But
Now,
it also gives people this sense of fear of being replaced that oftentimes causes them to hide data that could be useful.
well, the thing you said, it causes people fear because they're going to be replaced. Because in this paradigm, in what I call the machine paradigm,
They are.
that's that's the rules of the game.
Yeah.
They are going to be replaced.
Yeah.
Now, is that the right way we should think of businesses? Is that the best way to think of it? Are we, as you said, are we taking advantage of the fact that at the end of the day, the thing that makes the machine operate and produce the results are the people in it? And it's not just replacing them with component parts like robots and artificial intelligence. Um,
Because the throughput's still tainted if you're not including it.
I mean, you look at the results, 70% of strategies fail to achieve their objectives, and 70% of people are disengaged. I mean, this is not a very nice game to play in. The
Mm-mm.
companies don't win, the employees don't win, the customers don't win, and the leaderships are burned out. I mean, the leaders are
Right.
having a hell of a time leading organizations in this complex world with that model. Uh,
Right. Command and control. Right. That's how, when I was in the aerospace industry, when I first started out in corporate world, 26, I saw the difference. People were beating each other over the head to get what they needed, right? Emotionally, instead of just being nice.
well, again, you kind of jumped over. So we know for years, people, your experience, my experience, and
I'll stay on the lily pad for a while.
so we know this doesn't work, right? I mean,
Yeah.
nobody likes it, but we're caught in the trap because the number one responsibility of the leader in the organization as a whole is to make sure it produces the results necessary
Right.
to create the outcomes it needs for long-term sustainable growth.
Yeah.
So it has to
Exactly.
produce results. So going in and talking about profit is a bad thing, et cetera, is the dumbest thing we can do because that's like saying, hey, you shouldn't care about the financial well-being of your family. Just love them and everything will take care of itself. I mean, that's come on. No, no head of a family is ever going to buy into that story. And no
Nor
C
should you.
and nor should you. And no CEO is ever going to buy into, you know, profit isn't your number one priority. This notion, and I know you believe in it, but notion of people, profit, and planet tries to minimize the reality that before you can have people and planet, you have to have profit. You don't
Mhm.
exist if you can't sustain yourself.
Right.
And so the issue really is, okay, let's accept profit is the number one responsibility. Whether you call it profit or growth or sustainability, long-term viability,
Mhm.
thriving, whatever words you want to use. At the end of the day, I got to have enough profit in my book, my first book, I write there's a chapter called Profit, the Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And if you just think about the game of business, it's simple. I and I look at it as an energy exchange, right? So the energy
Mhm.
that the value I give you, right? You're going to buy something from me, whether it's my services or my products. You perceive that to have a certain value. That value, your perceived value, is what you give me in terms of in our monetary system, dollars, which is revenue. So revenue is nothing more than a measure of exchanged value for me. Right? In the barter system, you give me 3 goats for my can of milk, but
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's just an exchange of value. And now for me to produce that product or service, it's going to cost me some things, right? Energy, you know, buying stuff,
Raw materials,
raw materials, right?
machineries to make
That,
it, all that kind of,
that
yeah.
that's just energy. You can think of it, and that's just expenses, right?
Right.
So if you think of it as if I can provide you value at a rate that is higher than what it cost me to produce it, I have a nice sustainable organization.
Hmm.
That's what profit is. And I dare anybody to say, you should create value at a rate that's lower than what it costs you to make it. Anybody that's a silly statement to make. That's like, hey, run your family in a deficit.
Well, yeah,
Keep running up debt.
that just
You
doesn't
know,
feel right.
so profit isn't a bad thing. Profit is actually the thing that we want companies to do.
Oh, absolutely. And what I generally say, we're shifting because of this refocusing. We're shifting from profit over people and planet to people and planet over profit. Doesn't do away with the profit. It puts it in
Can't
different
you can't have
perspective.
you can't have people and planet if you don't have profit.
Right.
So your whole premise of
But to
people and
get the
planet,
profit, this is where the refocusing is this take, like we're talking about. This is where you go into an organization and you get them, you build a community instead of an organization.
but you have to explain to a leader. This is my belief anyway. When I
Hmm.
say you have to, my belief is it's much more effective to explain to a leader, I'm going to help you make more profit, and I'm going to show you how to do it. But you have to think of it as we're going to think of this in a different way. It's not a black box. That's a
Right.
machine. It's not profit that's bad. It's the paradigm of how we think of making profit. That's
Yes, absolutely.
so now let's look at what is an organization really. And I came to this when I realized that, and you can find this in lots of different, whether it be in psychology or in sociology, or mostly around the work of group dynamics.
Hmm.
There's this realization that when a group of people come together and for a common purpose, um, they begin to act collectively as if they're one entity. Even though they each act differently, they begin to form like a collective set of
Sure.
behaviors,
It's
right?
like they're creating a tapestry and each one of them is a thread.
If you want to use that metaphor, that's a good one. Um, and you see it, in lots of environments. Well, you see it in high performing sports teams, right?
Hmm.
They seem to, well, you talked about your jazz ensemble, right? Your musical ensemble. You begin to move as if you're just one entity. You're each playing a different instrument, but collectively you're making one beautiful sound together.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have one cohesive voice that's coming out, even though you have all these individual parts. Well, if you think about what an organization is, that's more akin to what it is. It operates more like a person than it does a machine. And
Absolutely.
once you start down that path, then you ask the question, you ask the same question. Over here, I'm asking, how do I make this machine produce outputs in a way that produces profit, right? Because I need profit to grow. I need profit
Sure.
to sustain myself. I
Right.
need profit to expand. So it's very simple formula. So now the question is, I know how to make this view of an organization produce profits. It's got some really negative byproducts by following that approach or that game or that framework. Let's ask the question, how do I make a person become productive, produce outcomes? I know how
Hmm.
to make results here. How do I make results with a person? And then if you ask that question, then you go down a very interesting path. What
What do you
makes,
find?
what's that?
What do you find in that path?
Well, in this path, all I care about is the activity I do. Over here, people have to do stuff to get things done, to produce results,
Hmm.
but they're not only, it's not only what they do that it impacts their results, but the nature and quality of the interactions they have. A simple example that I like to use. I leave work in the morning. I leave home in the morning to go to work. As I'm leaving the door, my wife says something and it just throws me. And I'm upset at some level. It's like, what? No, and I don't have
Yeah.
time to really clean it up yet.
Took you out of your comfort zone.
So I am on my way to work, and part of my brain is thinking about that interaction I had.
Hmm.
Right? There's a big portion of what I'm going to do through that period of the day, say the whole day perhaps, where there's a good part of me that's distracted because of the relationship dynamic. Has nothing to do with what I'm doing, right? So that's a simple personal example, right? But you take that into any person in their interaction,
Organization, everyone in it
the,
could be in that place.
the quality of our relationships has a tremendous impact on the activity we do. In the
Absolutely.
machine, it doesn't really matter because the machines just
They just
work
do what
into
they tell you to.
optimized
Yeah.
transaction. They just move part here, do this, do this. But you
Yeah.
still have to do all that here too. But all of a sudden, the movement slows down because I'm worried about, this.
Feelings are involved.
So when you're dealing with humans, you not only have to worry about what we call the activity domain, but also the relationship domain.
Hmm.
Here's something else that's rather interesting, and where my work is different than those who are talking about living systems. Humans make choices, I shouldn't say make choices. We don't. We behave in response to life without even thinking about it,
Most of the time, absolutely.
and that's a good thing because if we had to think about it, it'd be like 51st Dates. If you remember the movie, every time I wake up, I got to remember what I thought about and what.
Right.
But
Or even just the autonomic system in the body. If you got to think what your body's doing all the time, that's just
you know,
insane.
you just never get anything done, right? And you
Yeah.
just always be well, new, everything's a new experience, so you got to make sense out of it and you got to think about it. And so we have this pattern in life where we build up this sense of, call it an instruction set, right? And that instruction set is, it's kind of like I call the psychic DNA because it allows me when something happens, I know how to respond to it.
Hmm.
Somebody taps me on the shoulder, I know to look around and, or somebody says hello, I say hello back. I mean, we learn these things, right, through life. And in business, I learned that this is the way we respond to customers, and this is the way I deal with this department, and this is the way, we handle conflict around here. We got all these rules.
Hmm.
I call it the context field. So you got activity, you
Well,
got
it's like you say, it's
relationship.
the culture that's built from all of that without anything to do with the organization.
The culture has a lot to do with the
Well,
organization.
I understand that's how it
Think,
shows up,
think
but
of
I'm
it, if
saying,
you think of it in psychological terms, in Jungian terms, it's the persona that the organization is living through.
right,
And I call that the context. And it's
sure.
driven by psychic DNA. Now, a machine has an instruction set that tells it how to operate. That instruction set is what the designer creates when he builds the machine. Right? Living systems also has an instruction set. Trees know how to respond. An acorn knows how to turn into an oak tree, right? It's
Hmm.
got an instruction set. It knows what to do with water and earth and sun, and birds know how to fly, fish know how to swim, and they act very naturally. And unlike machines, living systems are very adaptive and resilient, and they can adjust to environmental conditions.
Right.
The difference between living systems and living organizations or people, an organization as a living entity, is that living systems don't have a psychic DNA, they just have genetic DNA. People have this thing called psychic DNA, the narratives we have created that make us respond to life. We talked about narratives at the very beginning.
Hmm.
And so if I'm a leader of an organization and I recognize it's not a machine and thinking of it as a machine has a great deal of limitations and some really bad negative byproducts and doesn't work very well in a very complex world. It worked really well when the world was less complex, but now in a complex world, its limitations are really being shown and it's being under a lot of stress.
Hmm.
So we know we want to go to organizations viewed as resilient, adaptive, more part of an ecosystem framework, more oriented towards relationships. Um, a byproduct we like where it's more accepting of the fact that it's part of a university, a planetary ecosystem. It's not a, right?
It's a community contributor.
It's a community contributor. That's a great way to say it. And you can only do that, in my opinion, if you shift that paradigm, if you shift that framework, and you
Hmm.
begin to think of it as a person. And so now I go to the leaders and say, hey, I know your number one responsibility is to create profit. I want to help you create better profit. You're doing things in a certain way, and I bet you're getting these types of results, like you're getting compliance but not commitment. People aren't taking ownership. You're always being pulled into stuff. You have to always deal with issues.
Crisis
And,
management.
and you're always saying, why can't they handle it? Because they're the experts in it. Why are they coming to me? When they bring a problem, I want to bring a problem and a solution. I don't want to, you're feeling like a daddy over a bunch of little kids, right? Um,
Yeah. Hey,
and,
pops,
and
what's up?
and do you want to keep doing that, or do you want to have your kids take responsibility and help and contribute on their own and be more committed to the goals and not just complying with what you say they need to do?
Right.
And so you
Have
give them
them
enough.
be able to think deeper about things, consider, have the compassion, the empathy, the deeper
Here's the thing.
opportunities.
Here's the thing. We can tell them they want it, and they can even say, "I want to do that."
Hmm.
Problem is, they don't have the skills to be able to lead that way.
Right.
And
Well,
the
that's where folks
the
like you come
people,
in, consultants, right, that help in that segue
uh,
with the processes that invite them to do so and give them a direct experience of what it feels like on the other side so that they've got that file to refer to. That's kind of how I look at it because it's, we don't change until we have a direct experience of the benefit of the change, usually,
yeah,
or at least some inkling of it.
you can give them an inkling of it, but you also have to give them the skills to navigate it.
Absolutely.
And you can't just give them a process. You see, what you said was give them a new process and so forth. That's just the old machine thinking again.
Maybe it's a bad choice of words.
No, it's a perfect choice of words. It's what
Well, the
happens all the
process,
time.
it leads them to, it gives them, in my perspective, what you offer, you invite them to take that journey and then give them a way to do that so that they can have a direct experience of that and see the beneficial results of it and develop
Yeah.
the trust in it,
You also have
each
to
other.
give them a different way of understanding how all of that is going to create the outcomes.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's part of the process because that's what you're doing is you're shifting that paradigm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how we do that, play is a great way to do it. How often do organizations actually engage play in the workplace? What have you noticed? Are there those that do? And in that respect, what are the results they're getting from their
I,
organization?
I think the word play is a misnomer. Um,
Okay. What I know you understand what I mean. How would you say it better?
I don't know if I'd say it better. Look, play is a byproduct when people feel. So I'll go back to what I was saying before we kind of took off on this slight tangent.
Okay.
What I was saying was that the challenge with leadership with the organization is the fact that people have been trained that the employees, not only do the leaders live in a paradigm, the employees live in a paradigm.
Hmm.
They know that they don't have to take the risk to make their own choices.
Because
That
they're following the prescription.
they're going to follow what people say, and if it
Yep.
doesn't work out, hey, they can always blame somebody else because it wasn't my fault. And they've learned to do that from very early in the educational system,
Sure.
right? Teachers teach to the test. Students learn to prepare for the test because that's what it takes. And that's what we do in business, right? We people learn to create the goals that they're going to be evaluated against.
Test, test. I don't do tests, right? Monty was, that was a perfect line, and yet we do, right?
Everybody
We're
does.
constantly being tested of our own
And and
fortitude.
and so when you talk about people being able to take ownership and critical thinking, we have to recognize that they have to be developed into that they're
Yes.
not going to do it naturally.
Oh yeah.
You can't just go into the organization and say, "Hey, we're going to play today. This is going to be fun. We're going to play."
No, that's totally not what I meant. There are certain things. There are things that you can bring into the work environment that um, elicit that attitude of playfulness, not necessarily that you're taking them out of that environment and giving them, something actually, a game or something like that. It's the things that you can do within.
That's what I mean by earlier by just throwing out statements like let's make work fun. It's like be careful with that.
Sure, sure,
Because
sure.
you're communicating. It's a nice soundbite, so to speak, but it doesn't really help leaders
Yeah,
understand.
it almost gives you the sense of abdicating responsibility in order to have fun.
It can lead to that. It can lead to that. That's why I'm very careful with, the words I choose because I want to make sure people understand. One, this is a journey people are going to go on. Changing the paradigm is not easy. Hell,
Mhm.
look, it took us how many years since they invented quantum physics to really begin to understand what it means? It's over 100 years now. And we're
Sure.
still struggling with what it means for us on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Um,
Well, and on an educational basis, Howard Gardner's work with multiple intelligences, right? Impeccably brilliant. And yet we still don't include it in the classrooms.
yeah, so changing the paradigm, getting people comfortable, and you can't have leaders just shift the way they're going to lead without the people being taken along the journey as well.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, there's a desired outcome. Like we talk about, imagine an organization where the people come to work and want to do what the organization needs to have done. Just imagine what life for the
Or are
people.
curious enough to even ask beyond what they are given as their job responsibilities.
Well, that's what I meant by they are doing what the organization needs. They are taking ownership.
Hmm.
They are treating themselves like they're the CEOs of their own life. That they are in full control of what they choose, and they choose to do what the organization needs to have done, not because they're going to get paid more, not because because that's what they really want to do with their lives. And
Right.
just imagine I had an organization filled with 10, 20, 100, 5,000 people who came to work that way, who came to work recognizing they were part of an ecosystem. And the definition of an ecosystem is we're codependent on each other for the success of the whole ecosystem. So the
Right.
relationships between this department and that department isn't just me focused on getting my work done. It's like, wait a minute, we got to work together. This is an ecosystem. We're all part of this. I win only when we win, right?
Mhm.
And getting people to that stage. Now that's the aspirational vision that the living organization is intended to create. But it starts with understanding at the very basic what an organization is and start thinking of my role as leader in a very different way. Instead of plan, organize, lead, and control, it's a new game. It's a game of setting the context, developing the people, building community, and being of service. And being of service, interestingly enough, is making profit because
Right.
being of service means I'm going to deliver to you what I promised to you
And something of value.
and something of
Right? This,
value.
this is the
But
way that the universe, God, whatever, right? Um, uh, Money, finances, value. when you have it, when you're getting it from the outer world, it nourishes the inner world because it shows you you're doing something right.
And when you're doing the inner world right, you'll naturally produce the outer world.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Now, in this process, in what have you noticed in the last few years of the challenges that are being faced that COVID brought and the curiosity, willingness, or maybe fear on one side, because there are those who are trying to go back to the old system, right? Because it was comfortable. However, with what's been happening with COVID, remote working, VUCA, right, and different things that are happening in the world that is throwing it into this state of seeming confusion and not knowing where we're headed. How do you see those that have an idea to help move it forward in a constructive, productive, and sustainable way? What have you seen come up over the last few years that edifies that path?
uh, well, I'll go back. I've lived through a number of patterns where, or I've seen a repeating pattern over the years
Hmm.
where I call it major disruptions happen.
Okay.
Um, I'll go back to the PC. That's my early first major disruption, right? Going away from the gods of IT sitting in the mainframe room, controlling all the information that flows through life, to having it on my desk. And how is that going to change the world? And how does that
Or the
change?
having it in your hand.
Well, that comes later.
Yeah. I left ahead again. Yeah, again.
And then the internet, unbelievable control of. I remember sitting on an early Skype call and having coffee in the morning with a woman in South Africa that was having afternoon tea. And it was like, and I said, wow, this is like being at Cafe Skype, you know,
Hmm.
time and space, and how that changed us over then social media. And then we had the Great Recession, excuse me, we had 9/11, and then we had the Great Recession, and then COVID, and now we have the AI thing repeatedly. Now, what's different about what's happening now is the speed between each of those disruptions.
Right.
It's coming faster and faster and faster. What do I think about it?
Moore's law, maybe
Yeah, it could be. It's
applied in a different way.
in a different way. It's
Yeah.
anyway. Yes, I think I have come to accept, having lived through each of those disruptions, I've come to accept that that's the universe um, at a global societal scale, um, whispering in our ear, there's a new path to take.
Hmm.
And
Totally
as
agree with you.
as a collective, as a collective, we're at that crossroads and we're looking down that path and we're seeing the overgrown vegetation and we can't see deep into it and we hear the roar of lions down there and we're struggling to go on that path and part of us knows we have to go there and part of us, and I talk about us
Hmm.
collectively, it's like
Sure.
this one human body struggling with it, and part of us is going, and part of us is staying, and we're working our way through it, and eventually, we always end up on the new path we have to go on, and I think that's what we're facing. To me, that's almost the definition of how evolution happens. And it happens in our personal lives. I mean, we're doing at a societal level what has happened to me, and I think most people, major disruption, a divorce.
Right.
I got
Forced
fired.
change.
I got fired. I got a client that got canceled. I got a period in my life when every single one of my clients ended the contract. They didn't fire me or anything. Just all seemed to happen at the same time. And my 25 years or whatever it was at the time, 20 years of building a network of contacts and referrals and business coming, my pipeline went dry. I
I've
take
experienced it too. I had 20 years of partnering workshops for building road and bridge construction, right? And it took them that long, and now they've got interior guys that understand the process, and the exterior third-party help is no longer necessary unless it's a DoD contract, and then it's mandatory that they hire an outside vendor. But the things change, right? You learn, you adapt, you assimilate the new stuff, make it your own, move forward with it, and then you find out, oh, wait, we didn't quite have it all yet. There's something else we need to learn, right? And I think that's what AI is doing. It's forcing us to think better, at least those that are engaged with it. And then it's not really artificial, that it's an aggregate, because all the things that it's querying is human data that's been produced. So
Yeah.
we're actually querying ourselves, and maybe we can help ourselves be a little smarter because we got access to more now.
Well, it's allowing us to process a lot of data very quickly.
Yeah.
That's what AI is doing. And um, it's allowing us to relieve ourselves of tasks that we put off because we know how long it's going to take. We don't want to do it manually.
Man, it took me 10 years to write my first book, over 1,000 pages. Now it's part of my part of my resources in the AI that I created so that I can do research and write
Yeah.
faster and more simpler and put it into the dimension. I think publishers now say anything over 100 pages you may not get read, and even 60% of those that are under 100 pages actually get read.
Interesting statistic.
It is. And so what do you do about that? Right? If you love to write like you and I do, ooh.
Well, I don't know. My second book that's coming out, I think it came in at around 300 pages, so 270. I
Yeah,
forget. Yeah.
I did that for a number of years. My
I still love reading books. Yeah. I think that the notion that um I don't know. There's a lot of people who talk about AI as replacing everything, and I don't think that's true.
I don't either.
I think AI is going to allow humans to become more human.
Yeah. It's augmenting. It's not taking away. It's allowing us,
Depends
like
on
you
your point
say.
of view. It depends on your point of view. Or as I like to say, it depends on your context.
Yes, yes. And it does. And how, see, you and I want this beautiful, world to emerge uh, as rapidly as possible, even through the chaotic experiences that we know we're going to have during that path. And how do we get an idea of how to be in the moment on a daily basis, and even in a moment to moment, because what we do everywhere, anywhere, we do everywhere, you know. And I argued with T. Harv Eker face to face with that years ago when I first met him, and it turned out to be true, right? It's those subtle patterns that we don't recognize that play out in everything we do. Now, how would those patterns, which affect the workplace and the living and loving organization, how would you offer something that a person could investigate, challenge, experiment with in their own lives on a daily basis, or even in just a moment to where they might have a shift in their own paradigm?
There's a skill I've learned, and I keep refining it. I call it heart centering.
Hmm.
And heart centering is sort of like meditation, sort of like relaxation, sort of like out of body experience a little bit, but it's the ability to shift one's awareness away from the mental chatter of the mind and sit quietly in the heart. And it's kind of a simple process, but
Mhm.
it's,
I'm reminded that that longest journey is 18 inches.
yeah. I was just reading a Substack article by Philip Goldsmith, he writes it, he calls it practical spirituality, and he told a story about um, how he woke up one morning and looked out his window and noticed that the barn and the fence on his property very nearby was ablaze in fire. And he talked about how the mind took over, and you know what do I do now? And call 911. Okay, we did that. Now what about what do I pack? And oh, I probably should get dressed. Or what about this? And just um
Yeah, a
and,
thousand permutations
and
happening
he
almost simultaneously.
and he talked about how in all of the spiritual traditions, and he follows the Bhagavad Gita as his path. They talk about creating a state of equanimity where
Hmm.
when you're in that state of equanimity, no matter what happens, you respond with calm and directness and all of that.
Right.
And he goes, I thought I lived that way, but when really push came to shove, I probably was more equanimous than I would have been 3 or 4 years ago, certainly more than I would have been 10, 20 years ago, but I still got a ways to go.
Well, you still got a
I
burning
just
barn to deal with, right?
I I I loved his compassionate humility.
Sure.
And I think that's the journey that helps us all if we learn to move from the head to the heart, to learn the art of creating that state of equanimity, they call it. I call it heart-centeredness. My
Hmm.
teacher called it innate harmony. Um, but it's that place where I said at the earlier, where the body is vibrating at the same frequency of the universe. And what I find that allows me to do is it allows me to look at the mind chatter. It allows me to look at what's going on around me, take a breath, accept it for what is, and then respond accordingly. And it's with calm and ease and peace. And am I perfect at it? I'm probably not even as good as Goldsmith is, but I'm getting better with it with each day, and I keep practicing it. So if I was to share one thing people should practice is I would say that compassion and heart-centered living.
Right. Did you say Earl Smith?
No,
Oh,
Goldsmith. I think that's the name.
Earl. Okay. All right.
Philip Goldsmith is
Okay.
the
Right. Um, Astute, really. And what I found, I do a similar thing. I found an additional piece that really helps, and that's putting my fingertips together and feeling my heart beat in them as I breathe.
thousands of ways to do it.
It's
Thousands of thousands.
absolutely, but it takes it moves you into that place where when you're actually feeling your heartbeat, you can begin to feel your whole body pulse, and then those thoughts become uh, less present. I'll
In,
put it
in,
that way.
in my experience teaching people about heart center, some people feel it somatically, like you did, you feel your
Yeah,
heartbeat.
we're all
Other
built
people
differently.
feel it very differently.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to give them space to feel it and experience it in the way that their body is tuned into feeling
Yeah,
it.
take it in, make it your own, right? Absolutely. Norman, this has been a wonderful conversation, rich with the wisdom and insights that you've witnessed and can share that I know are valuable for
Thank you.
leaders of organizations and others because what you've shared is like the leadership in life too, right? How to pay attention, how to be present, how to have empathy and compassion and be in that heart space because what you do anywhere, you do everywhere. So I thank you so much for your time and your
Well,
insight.
thank you for having me. I hope it's been useful for you and for your audience. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share what little wisdom I do have. So thank you very much.
Such humility. And no, I love it. And I love you, man. It's you're a beautiful being, and I am so blessed to have the opportunity to have moments with you, let alone several. And
Thank you.
it's been absolutely fantastic, and I hope it continues. So thank you again, and namaste and in-law
Namaste.
catch. And thanks for sticking with us for this episode of One World in a New World. I know you got a lot out of it. And if you would, as a reciprocation, please do like, share, subscribe, and make a comment. Again, that's what gives us the gold. And do stop by planetaryscitizens.net and pick up your free copy of Planetary Citizens Awakening the Heart of Humanity. And it's all about what we've just been talking about. So thanks again. And for Norman Wolfe and myself, Zen Benefiel, we thank you, and I'll see you next time. Whether you're a leader steering a team, an entrepreneur chasing a vision, or an individual ready to level up, I can help you align purpose and performance so that you can navigate change with confidence, clarity, and yes, a little bit of Zen. Life's complex. Your next step doesn't have to be.